Hello, welcome to Health Check from the BBC. I'm Claudia Hammond, and today we're examining how to get vaccines out to people who need them. And we're not just talking about COVID vaccines, but malaria and HPV too. But we're starting with the woman whose cells, unbeknown to her, were used in the discovery of many vaccines and treatments. It is 70 years since Henrietta Lacks, a black farmer living in the United States, died from cervical cancer. Her cells live on. Trillions of them. There are so many that if they were laid side by side, they could wrap around the world 3 times. And these cells changed medical science forever, contributing to everything from the polio vaccine to drugs for Parkinson's, Alzheimer's disease and cancer, and even the new COVID vaccines. But all these cells were derived from tissue taken from Henrietta Lacks in the days when consent wasn't sought. She knew nothing of it at the time when, because she was black, many hospitals wouldn't even treat her. Her family has just announced that they are suing a biotech company who they say profited from her cells. To start our story, here's Rebecca Skloot, the author of The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, telling me why Henrietta's cells were so special.
Henrietta Lacks was a poor black tobacco farmer who grew up in Southern Virginia in the United States on the same plantation where her family were slaves. And in 1951, when she was 30 years old, she was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And she went to the doctor, which was at Johns Hopkins Hospital. And before treating her cancer, in what was standard practice at the day, her doctor just took a little slice of her tumor and put it in a dish and sent that down the hall to George Guy, who was the head of tissue culture research at Hopkins. And George Guy had been trying to grow human cells in culture outside the body for decades, and it had never really worked. He could sometimes grow them for a day or two, but they would all eventually die. And for some reason, Henrietta's just never died. So they're still alive today, growing in laboratories around the world, and they were one of the most important things that happened to medicine.
So why is it that her cells were so special and behave in a completely different way from everyone else's?
It's a bit of a mystery. No one really knows. So we know that she had HPV, which is the virus that causes cervical cancer, and there are multiple copies of the HPV genome in her cells, so they know that she had quite a lot of it. And she also had syphilis, which can weaken your immune system and cause, cancer to grow more aggressively. But a lot of people had those things, particularly in the 50s, and their cells didn't just take off like this. So there was something about her cancer, and scientists don't really know what it was. And part of what makes her cells so useful for science is exactly what made them so dangerous for her, that they're just so powerful and sort of hardy and grow.
Why is that so important? I mean, these are cancerous cells. You wouldn't think we'd want these for research on other diseases.
Right. It is sort of counterintuitive. Part of it is there are things that are highly abnormal about these cells. I mean, they have too many chromosomes or too few, but there's a lot that's normal about them. So they have a cell membrane that viruses have to get through in order to infect. They metabolize things, they produce proteins, and so what they do that's normal, you can study. And it actually is useful that they're cancer cells because what they do normally, they do much faster than regular cells. So it's sort of like studying a normal cell on hyperspeed.
Was she being experimented on, if you like, without her consent? And was that because she was a poor black woman?